What's up, Guardians? Profane here. Thanks for checking out the video. Destiny 2 has become an extremely convoluted game, and it can be very overwhelming when you're a new or returning player. Through the 10 years of Destiny 2's existence, a lot has changed in how you level up, earn XP, and acquire various armor, weapons, and other loot. As a new or returning player, putting together the best armor loadouts and builds will be one of the biggest keys to success that you'll have when trying to take on end-game content, like legendary missions, dungeons, or raids. So today we've got a comprehensive guide on how new and returning players can easily acquire high-stat armor, and how you can optimize that armor to achieve double and triple 100 stat builds. Builds that have armor with good stats that are properly assigned, along with the right armor mods and exotics, will make a huge difference in your overall performance and your ability to stay alive. To those unaware, each piece of armor that you have equipped provides you with 6 different character stats. These control your character's overall mobility, resilience, recovery, discipline, intellect, and strength. Mobility dictates the overall speed of a character, and it also has an impact on the jump height and distance. In the case of hunters, mobility also dictates how quickly class ability energy is refunded, which will have a significant impact on how often you can perform any of your dodges. Resilience will dictate how much damage that you can take before you die, but only while in PvE content. And the higher your resilience is, the less damage that you'll take, with a max of 30% damage resistance. Resilience also controls Titan's class ability, which dictates how quickly your barricade energy is restored. Recovery affects how quickly your character will regain lost health, and in the case of Warlocks, it also controls the regeneration rate of healing and empowering rifts. Intellect will control how quickly your super energy regenerates. Discipline will control how fast your grenade energy recharges, and strength will dictate how fast your charged melee attacks are regenerated. Each time an armor piece drops, these stats will be randomly assigned. These 6 character stats are divided into 2 groups, with mobility, resilience, and recovery in the top group, and discipline, intellect, and strength in the bottom. Once factoring in all of your equipped armor and armor mods, the maximum total points that you can distribute to any one character stat is 100. That gives you the maximum efficiency of that assigned stat. So as an example, with 100 resilience, you receive the maximum of 30% damage resistance. But in the case of discipline, since it governs your grenade use, having this at 100 will provide you with the lowest possible recharge rate, allowing you to have that ability more often. And based on what exotics you're using, what class you're running, and what type of build you're wanting to use, you'll need to distribute these stats differently. It's not possible to have every stat at 100, but with the right alignment of stats between all 5 of your armor pieces, you can most certainly have 2, 3, or even 4 of these categories at 100. When an armor piece drops, it comes with a randomly predetermined amount of points allocated to each of these stats. This is, of course, with the exception of class items. These points are split down the middle between the top and bottom groups. So if you had, for example, an armor piece that dropped at a base total of 64, 32 points will be assigned to the bottom, and 32 points will be assigned to the top. Legendary armor can drop with stats between 44 and 68, and in some very, very rare cases, you may even see a drop that's 69. To be considered as having high stats, armor will need to have at least 60 base points, but personally, I don't even pay attention to any armor that's below 66 points. Exotic armor will drop between 46 and 70, and in some very rare cases, you may even see 71. There are some exotics that have an intrinsic affinity towards certain character stats, which means those particular stats will always drop with a set number of points. For the most part, these are pre-Shadowkeep exotics. So let's take the Geomag stabilizers as an example. These will always have at least 1 point of resilience and 2 points of recovery, no matter how the rest of the stats are distributed. And I'll be leaving a link to a detailed spreadsheet down in the description below, so you can see how each of the exotics will drop. Once any legendary or exotic armor piece has been completely leveled up, it will gain an extra 2 points to each character stat, and with the addition of armor mods, you can have 10 extra points assigned to any stat of your choosing. So let's take our hunter here as an example. We're trying to put together a stasis build that uses the renewal grasp. The armor we're currently using was previously focused towards a build that relied on strength, mobility, and resilience. So these stats are all currently at or close to 100. But now we need to focus on discipline instead of strength so that we can maximize on our grenade output. We still want to keep resilience and mobility, but we don't really have a need for intellect or strength. Recovery would be nice, but we're already focusing on 2 out of the 3 stats in the top group. So as we collect armor, we need to keep an eye out on drops that have a predominant focus that's split between resilience, mobility, and discipline. And any armor piece that has a lot of points getting distributed to any other character stat is just going straight into the trash. With the use of ghost mods, you can augment the predetermined drop of any legendary or exotic armor piece. This will force every armor piece to drop with at least 10 points to that designated stat. So how does this help you optimize your armor? Well, let's say you're putting together a build that focuses on resilience, recovery, and strength. We would want to use our armor focusing on the oddball out. So since resilience and recovery are in the same group, we're going to focus on strength. This will mean that any armor drop will come with at least 10 points of strength, if not more. With the right amount of luck, you could even get as much as 30 points dedicated directly into strength. So that means the points allocated to the top group will be completely randomized and out of our control. But since we are focusing our build on 2 out of the 3 stats within that group, we have much better odds of getting armor drops with the focus more heavily being assigned to recovery and resilience. Another way you could augment the predetermined stats of any armor piece is to complete encounters within the weekly master raid. Each week, no matter what the raid rotator is, a different character stat is going to be featured, with a predetermined focus towards that specific stat. Unfortunately, you cannot double down with your armor focusing ghost mod, along with the activity stat focus. So if the master raid is providing resilience focused armor, you'll need to focus on another stat when setting your ghost mods. Another way to augment armor stats is by obtaining Artifice Armor. Artifice Armor is just like legendary armor, except it comes with 1 additional armor socket that you can use to apply an extra 3 points to any specific character stat. That would give you between 12 and 15 points that you could have reassigned at any time, which would give you a lot of flexibility when changing around builds. Artifice Armor is only provided through the newer generation of dungeons, and only on their master modes. This includes the Grasp of Avarice, Ghost of the Deep, Duality, Spire of the Watcher, and Warlord's Ruin. So now that we've covered the basics to understanding how to build your armor sets, let's talk about how to get high stat armor. Any armor piece you get has a tiny chance of dropping with higher stats, but some methods are more lucrative than others. Completing weekly milestones, for example, like weekly challenges through Hawthorne, Zavala, and Drifter. While these do offer a chance of dropping with higher stats, they're not as well known for doing so, which brings us to a more reliable option: weekly missions. There's one on Neomuna and one on Savathun's Throne World. Both of these are guaranteed to provide you with armor that drops with a base amount of 60 points or higher. And completing these on higher difficulties gives you a better chance at getting armor and weapon drops at the end. This goes the same for Empire hunts on Europa. There's also the legendary version of Dares of Eternity and the master mode of Wellspring. Both of these provide high stat armor, and more often than not, these armor drops are going to be 64 points or higher. Armor from Dares of Eternity does come with a guarantee of 2 different stats dropping with at least 16 points, which will really help when you add in the focusing that you can apply with your ghost. The Pit of Heresy is another great source of getting armor that has 2 stats getting guaranteed to have at least 16 points, but only when defeating the final boss, and that's once per week per character. The other older dungeons, like Prophecy and Shattered Throne, will also offer a chance of high stat armor when they are the weekly pinnacle. Completing Trials of Osiris matches, going flawless, and cashing in on Trials Engrams does also offer chances of high stat armor. But unless you're a die-hard, sweaty PvP player, I wouldn't say that this is going to be a very reliable method. We already spoke about Artifice Armor and Master Focused Raid Armor, but completing the weekly raid and dungeon rotators do technically offer high stat armor. It's just seldomly will you see these dropping at max points. And to have the best opportunity at farming these, you would need to do so when they are the rotator, since their encounters can be continuously farmed. Which brings us to what has been the absolute best and easiest method to get high stat armor for the last couple of seasons. And that's vendor engrams, which are through the H.E.L.M. At this point, we have 4 different vendors, and it's become rather easy to rack up on a ton of their engrams. These engrams give you an opportunity at focusing specific armor pieces, as long as you've leveled up with that vendor. Since you don't have to do anything more than just click a few buttons as you're cashing these in, this is definitely the easiest method. But in this process, you are likely to spend a lot of engrams and get a lot of shitty rolls in the process of getting just a few good ones. But I mean, come on, what else are you going to use those vendor engrams on? Now, when it comes to exotic armor, there's 2 ways to farm these: Vex Incursions on Neomuna, or Master and Legendary Lost Sectors. Completing these won't guarantee that the drops will be high stat, but they are the only reliable sources of farming for exotics, other than completing Greymaster Nightfalls. Technically, Master H.E.L.M is a source of acquiring exotics, but his exotic focusing is pretty expensive, and rarely is it ever worth it. Whereas on the other hand, each day a different Lost Sector features a different exotic armor piece. Some Lost Sectors aren't as easily farmable as others, and I mention this because if you obtained an exotic engram on a day that exotic helmets were being given out, just as an example, you could open that exotic engram on a day where the featured Lost Sector is providing gloves, so that way you would get gloves. But again, just as an example. So by maxing out your character's engram inventory, new engrams will get sent to your postmaster, which includes exotic engrams. And you could use this to your advantage, preventing you from wasting time getting exotic helmets when you're in need of those exotic gloves. Outside of armor and armor mods, you are able to manipulate your character stats with the use of class tree fragments. Some fragments give extra character stats, but others will take them away. But instead of adjusting your fragments to better facilitate your character stats, you should instead equip the right fragments that will work out best for your build, and then put your armor and your armor mods together, because the benefits of some of these fragments are far more lucrative than just a few extra character stat points. And with that, we've come to an end of today's video on how you can get high stat Artifice Armor, even if you're a new or returning Guardian. Thank you as always for checking out the video. If you enjoyed and found it helpful, then be sure to hit that like button below, along with the subscribe button if you're new. Both are greatly appreciated, and both really do help support the channel. If you're a new Light Guardian, just starting your journey, or a battle-hardened veteran, just looking for a new home, then be sure to check out the Discord link in the description below, and join one of the greatest communities in all of Destiny. And until next time, Guardians, this has been Profane, wishing you all some happy hunting.